Welcome to the 36th video in our series about Unix tools. In the last video, I finished explaining Solution 5, and we renamed it to bulk rename PyPy, as shown here. This has the original shell, your login shell, spawn a shell to run the script here. And that spawns a shell for each file name here. And in that, we have a subshell, one for dir name and one for base name. Wow, that's a lot of shells. And each one of those takes time and memory and CPU to run. I also showed you a much simpler script that works the same way, and by that I mean it produces the same result. But it does not use xargs, base name, or dir name. It just spawns one shell to run the script, and here you see it. And it uses a special kind of variable name expansion to do the job of the base name and dir name combined. So, great. At the end of video 35, not 34. At the end of video 35, I showed that the xargs solution worked on temp, which didn't have any Py files at all, and it didn't crash or give an error message. In this video, I'm going to show you what happens if you forget the -R option to xargs. I'm going to show you what happens if you have some bad file names that either have spaces or parentheses, things like that, that should not be part of a Unix file name. And I'll show you what happens when you run this simpler version here in the same situation. So we're going to do some testing and maybe a little debugging. Okay, so let's do it. First, let's run bulk rename PyPy on temp. Double check that temp has nothing, or you could do a find on temp, same thing. It has no .py files at all. And if we mistakenly broke this script by forgetting the -R, so we're going to go in there and break that script, but we can't. You can see we can't because it's read-only. But let's see what happens anyway. And let's remove that -R. And then we're going to save this to the same name with a bad on it. Save file under a different name? Yes. And so if we look, we can see, yes, we have that file. It doesn't have execute permission. We could do the old style, or we can do the new style, which is better. Read, execute, group other, nothing on bulk rename PyPy bad. Now let's run that program on temp. And you can see it says permission denied. And something went wrong with our chmod. We forgot to execute. Okay, no error. And wait a minute, I thought you had to have the -R to prevent the error. But clearly, that doesn't seem to be the case. When you want to debug a shell script, you can do sh-x, and this will show you some of what's going on, and it shows what happened. And clearly, we didn't have a problem. So we have to ask ourselves, wait a minute, what's going on? And -R is don't run command if input is empty. So clearly -r does what I said it does, but somehow, even if we forget it, this script works. So let's try something simpler. Let's just do a find right here, print the answers, run it to xargs, and we'll do an echo. I listed every file name. Let's find temp, and you'll see there were 2 files. It's still not empty. Let's make an empty directory called empty. And if we find on empty, there's nothing there. And so we'll try this on empty. And you see it shows the directory name. Wow. And that's why we didn't get the error. So let's just echo nothing. And what do we get? It echoes nothing. What can we conclude from this? We can conclude that shell programming is tricky and that you should have the -r, but it's hard to prove you need it. So let's delete our bad program so that we don't think it's a good one later, you know, next week, next month, next year. It's gone. Let's try the new program, which we said was sol1, and if we do a cat of sol1sh, that was our new style. It's still old shell code, but it uses a while loop instead of using xargs. So let's try sol1 on temp, and you can see it also works even if temp has no Python files. Wonderful. Let's create some files with bad names. So I'm going to remove that empty directory called empty. I'm going to make a new directory and I'm going to call it trouble. I'm going to go into trouble, and I need to quickly create some names of files. I can use a special tool called touch. We haven't talked about it before, but touch is used to set the timestamp, and if you set the timestamp on a file that doesn't exist, it will create an empty file, and we'll say bad name.py. And if we ls-l, you can see, yes, there's a file with spaces. It's got parentheses. It's a really horrible name. So let's go back and try solution number 1 on trouble. And it seemed to do something correctly. So let's ask ourselves, what's the name of our better program? Bulk rename py.sh on trouble. It seems okay. But remember, both of these programs are set up just to print what they would do. They don't actually do it. So let's make the programs actually work. We'll start with this program. Oh, John, none. And then this program, and we remove the echo so that it actually runs the mv command. And it says permission denied. Again, that's because you can see the permission bits don't allow writing. So chmod user can write, and we'll put that on the bulk renamer. Then we'll edit it again. We'll remove echo again, and this time when we save, it will allow us to save. So let's try the bulk rename py.sh on trouble. And it says I spelled the file name wrong. Okay, I've got no messages back. So did it do anything? Find on trouble. And you could see, yes, it really worked. It really worked. So let's go into trouble and fix that file name. You have to use these double quotes whenever you have spaces or some sort of horrible parentheses in there to rename it back to the lowercase. Now, what's the other program we need to test? Sol1. It is writable. And so we'll remove the echo. And we'll run that one. Again, no output. And if we find trouble, you'll see it worked. Unfortunately, if you do a find, you'll see because I didn't give a directory name, it did it everywhere. And I didn't even know because we don't print anything. In the next video, I'll show you how to really do the move and print the move so that at least if you make this mistake, you'll know. Thank you for listening.